Hey everybody, it's Romania Black. We are on episode 11 of Yona of the Dawn, the Dragon's Claw. Oh, I'm really excited because Kija, we just got introduced to our first dragon, the white dragon, Kija. He looks like he is going to be a very interesting addition to our group, particularly because he doesn't seem like Hawk at all, and he's completely devoted to Yona. So I talked about in the last reaction that brings up a lot of questions, and I'm recording this a little bit ahead, so I haven't gotten to your comments yet on this episode. But it brings up some questions of how much of Gija's loyalty and love for Yona is his own, and how much of it is the dragon deity inside of him, like professing its love to Kiryu and what I believe is Kiryu's descendant / reincarnation. So it's very interesting. And so I'm curious to see if over time, if these dragons that start out with this kind of loyalty built into their DNA towards Yona develops into something genuine. And it's not just the dragon's blood making them loyal to Yona, it's actually them and their own consciousness that is loyal to her. So that's going to be very interesting. And I'm curious because Suwon doesn't seem like a religious person at all, how he's going to take all this stuff about the dragons and them being real and not just a fairy tale. So that's going to be interesting too. But I love Kija being introduced into our group. And he comes from like the very like religious, they all believe in Yona and believe in the whole mythology and everything. And him coming from that viewpoint, it's going to be interesting to see how he compares to the other three dragons and how their views of the mythology all differ if they do. So pretty interesting stuff, but I love the dynamic between him and Hawk. He seems more aligned like with Yoon's perspective. Yoon is kind of, it seems like Yoon and Kija would get along pretty well, perhaps, even though Yoon doesn't really like nobility or royalty, and Gija's kind of been raised up like royalty, so maybe that's going to be where their dynamic is kind of tested. So it's interesting the web that we're getting with these characters already, and our quartet now traveling to find the second dragon. So I like it. I like how it's developed, but I'm curious to see. I want to know what his power is. I remember they were saying that one couldn't be struck. The green dragon can jump. I remember that. The green dragon can jump. And I think the yellow dragon can't be hit with a sword or something, but he has like the giant shield. And then the claws that can tear through anything. So I guess Gija's supposed to be like an offensive fighter. So, very interesting. The fact that these are not the same dragons that started out the series, that they're their descendants, is interesting. Because I'm like, I wonder how much of their like muscle memory and ability to fight is like inherited like in their DNA, or if it's something they have to build up kind of like Yona. I don't know, but we shall find out, right? So I'm pretty excited to get to this episode. I hope y'all are too. But in any case, let's go ahead and start. We are going to start episode 11 of Yona of the Dawn, and we're going to start that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. Oh, this is a really good episode. I like Gija's character a lot, actually. And he's a bit more relatable and understandable in this episode now that we've gotten a little bit more into his character. So, yeah, the idea that Kija has basically lived his entire life under this guise of being like, my whole duty is to protect the king. I was born for my blood to be used as a weapon to protect the king if I ever meet up with them. And so Kija spent his whole life preparing for this day to possibly happen, not knowing if it's going to possibly happen, and then to finally get to live out what his ancestors have been preparing for. You can tell that Kija takes a lot of pride in protecting Yona. They still call Yona king. And I'm very fascinated by that. I'm wondering if it will ever get to the point, if the other dragons will call Yona king as well, and if it will ever get to the point where the 4 of them call her queen and recognize Yona over Kiryu. Because right now, the dragon blood in him and his whole mission is referring to protecting the king that's supposedly inside of Yona. But I'm curious if they'll ever get to that point where they will recognize Yona as her own person and not just as the possible descendant reincarnation of the king. So that's interesting. But yeah, I like that Hawk calls him White Snake. He doesn't call him Dragon. Even though there are some moments between Hawk and Kija in this. And I like that Hawk just pesters people. And he can't help it. It's like a defense mechanism. Hawk doesn't want to admit that he likes people and he's compassionate. He is, and he does care, but he doesn't want to admit that he's actually kind of a softie. So Yona has to constantly tell Kija, like, no, this is just Hawk. Hawk just pesters people. It's his hobby. And Hawk's like, it's my hobby. And so she's like, you two need to get along because we're going to be on this journey for quite some time. Kija is a really interesting mixture of Hawk and Yona in a lot of ways, in that he's ruthless when he's wanting to protect someone like Hawk, but he also is coming from a place of not really having been used to the outside world or having any outside experience like Yona. So Gija's kind of a cool blend of Hawk and Yona in the weirdest of ways. But yeah, so I feel like in this entire episode, Kija is struggling with the fact that he's not being as useful as he probably had built up in his entire head what this was going to be like. He's like, I'm going to go protect Yona. We're going to go seek out the other dragons. We're going to find them instantly, get the band all together. It'll be great. And we're seeing that that's not exactly easy. And I like that this show is being very clever and using time and distance properly in this, because sometimes in anime it's like 2 seconds later they're in a village that's miles and miles away, and you're like, we get no context for what's been happening the entire time. In this, we do see them going on this journey and we see them talking to each other and interacting with each other, but then it shows that time passes and it is taking them a while to get from point A to point B. I like that they don't just instantly find all the dragons. It shows that they've been traveling for some time and that they are getting to know each other and that time is passing by. So I like that. It's kind of suspicious, and we don't know what Suwon's been doing this entire time, so that's kind of nervous. It's kind of nerve-wracking. And the fact that the Fire Tribe are still wandering around looking for them, or looking for anyone, because they think that Yona and Hawk's dead at this point, but still dangerous. But yeah, Yoon is best boy. I love Yoon. I love that Yoon is like, my job is to be the cartographer here. I'm the one on this journey. Let me do my job. And that kind of relates to Gija's whole struggle. Is Gija's like, I should be able to find this blue dragon easily, and it's just not working out like I planned. And I'm not used to sleeping outside or dealing with bugs or not eating. Kija kind of figures out this episode that he's had a very luxurious life, and that even though he talked the talk of being like, I'm going to go and protect Yona, he's not quite as ready to do that immediately as he may have thought he was. And so I like that he has to kind of come to grips with what it is going to take traveling with all of them. And Yona's I love Yona's growth in this, because I was thinking back 7 episodes ago, Yona was in such a bad place that I can't imagine her. Like, she's not scared of bandits. She's practicing shooting 200 arrows a night. She's self-sufficient. She's encouraging others. She's managing Hawk better. Yona's grown so much in this series so far. And I think that it's nice to see her as a character grow, because then she can help out Kija, who's growing the same way she is. Only Kija, the difference is Kija hasn't suffered from a big tragedy like losing his father like Yona has. Gija's come from a similar place as Yona of being spoiled and kind of watched over, growing up, but he hasn't had this big tragedy happen to him yet like Yona has. So his motivations and hers are kind of spurned by different things. They animated Kija so well in this. There's so many shots that I want to go back and screen cap, because I'm like, some of the animation on him is beautiful. This, and when this anime wants to animate him good, they do. He looks gorgeous in some of these shots, especially when he's all blushy. And I'm sorry, but poor Kija having a bisexual crisis. Because on the one hand, when Yona looks up at him and the sunlight shines on her and she's like, no one could ever replace you. And he's like, what is this feeling so sudden and new? It's like he's having this moment of realizing he's in love with her. And it's like, that ain't the dragon blood. And we'll talk about that. But then in the other vein, when Hawk is like, he's like, why do you protect the princess? You're not a dragon. And Hawk's like, I have my reasons, but I'm not going to tell somebody I just met. And in that moment, Gisha's like, this man is stronger than I gave him credit for. It's like, oh no. Y'all warned me that Hawk is shippable with anybody. And I'm like, even Kija. Oh no. I'm like, oh, this is bad, because I ship Yona and Hawk so much, but it's like you can kind of see all the different angles. This is just gonna be a giant shipping war, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm pulling for Yona and Hawk, but these other pairs aren't bad, so I can't complain. So yeah, the bandits showing up, and we get the idea, the dragon claw getting bigger and taking up his whole arm. I kept thinking that Yona was going to talk to Kija about him being, because he is quite bloodthirsty and merciless in this. Him and Hawk just hack people down. They just hack the bandits down left and right. But we did have that conversation a few episodes ago about if they're going to survive in this, then they're gonna have to probably hurt people. And I like that the dragon's arm gets so hot, it's boiling hot, and it burns the man's hand. And Gija's like, this arm has been waiting thousands of years to protect its master, and it's passed down to me, and now I have the chance to use it. It's like this power's been lying dormant for generations, and now he gets to like amplify it and use it for the first time. It's crazy. So to answer our question, the dragon claw just does what it wants, and it's like it's been like imbued within him the ability to fight, so that's good. And like, yeah, because this kid has clearly probably never fought. Maybe he's trained with some people in the village, but never fought like others like this. And I love that Hawk is so thrilled. Hawk is like, no one could match me back at the castle, but you can. Like that smile on his face, like the power of a dragon's claw. He's like, you're more heartless than you look. It's like, And he says, this still isn't enough. Hawk, was it? Shall I also protect you as the princess instructed? And Hawk's like, oh, we're going to have like a measurement match here. I can handle myself. And I love the two of them fighting together. Like, there are offensive dudes. I like it. The animation in the fight scenes, for being a shoujo, this is up there with any shonen. I mean, honestly, it is. It's just the fight scenes are really well choreographed. And them just getting Hawk's movements with his glaive down so wonderfully. And then they cut back to him saying, like, you called me a white snake, and I told you I was going to aim my claw at you if you did that. It's like, oh, I just love them, like, getting back to back. And there's them catty back and forth with one another. It's like, is this flirting? I feel like it's the butterfly meme where it's like the butterfly comes down, the guy's like, is this flirting? It's their own special language, you know. I love it, though. I love it. Yeah, and then, of course, that's when Kija is like, oh, maybe I'm also attracted to Hawk. This man that calls me a snake, you know, maybe he's not so bad. Which, to be fair, Hawk's like flirting with everybody, too, in his own secret way. But yeah, it's really good. I like the idea that the dragon claw is not satiated until it's fully protected its master. And I like that Yona gets in on this, that she's telling Yoon, she's like, I want to be able to protect Hawk. I don't want to just be a bystander. I want to be able to be useful. And Yoon, of course, being the jack of all trades that's amazing at everything, teaches her how to fight in that moment. It's like, okay, this is how you shoot. And she shot the guy in the hand to keep him from throwing the knife and doing that. So that was good. And then, of course, they get caught. But then I feel better knowing Gija's here because him and Hawk work well together. And it's just another offensive person to help out in the moment. So that's good. And yeah, Gija's saying, you're not human, like you are a monster. And it's like, I'm wondering if the Thunder Beast has any place in the mythology as well, or if it's just what Hawk is, if Hawk's just the Raiju and that's just what we call him, or if there's something else to it. Because he was an orphan. We don't know where he came from, really. Moondock just kind of took him in. So maybe there's something to it. Maybe there's something to the Thunder Beast, and we just don't know it yet in the mythology. But, of course, Hawk catches her. And Kija and them are right there, and they both at the same time are like, are you all right? And Yoon's over here, hands on his hips, like, well, I'm fine too, but thanks for asking. So yeah, and then I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. I get a very Gimli and Legolas vibe between Kija and Hawk, especially when they're counting how many opponents they took out. Because like Gimli and Legolas are like, how many did you take out? 4 to 3. And it's like, you know, they all counted. So I get that friendship vibe between Hawk and Kija. Very similar to Legolas and Gimli. So after Kija uses the arm, there's like a moment where there's this black mist surrounding it, and it like pulses. It like pulsates, and he gets hurt. And so I'm wondering if there's a limit to how he can use it. He fought too hard. Yeah, I meant to fight more elegantly. Ah. And then Hawk's like, I like that the white dragon god has such a bloodthirsty fighting style. Hawk's like, I'm thrilled. Like, that's great. Hawk's like, Hawk's kind of sadistic. He's like, I like somebody that can keep up with me. Because Kija wanted to fight more refined and elegantly, and the white dragon was like, nah, we're going to just mess stuff up. So, and Hawk liked that. So I'm curious if Kija just has to be careful not to overdo it, right? There's a limit. I like that there's a limit here. He's not omnipotent. There is a limit to his ability. Kind of like Hawk as well. Hawk reaches his limit as well. And then he just kind of like passes out because his wounds opened up again. I'd forgot all about that. And then, yeah. And of course, Hawk looks the most handsome even when he's passed out. It's like, dude's not even trying. Not even trying. Still a mess, not even trying. Still hot. And then, yeah, Geisha's like, he moved so quickly even while he was injured like this. He's a monster. Yeah. So that makes me curious. I'm like, is there part of the mythology that we don't know yet about the Thunder Beast? Or is it just Hawk being Hawk? I don't know. Don't know. Yeah, but Yona seems to attract all of these characters, you know. And then Yoon is the most normal of all of them. Yoon's just like, just trying my best. So yeah, the humor in this show is great. The humor is so on point. Like her tugging on Hawk's hair, using Kija as like carrying all of their stuff, the bug scene, everything. Like the humor in Yona is just wonderful, and I absolutely love it. It makes me excited. I started reading volume 1 of the manga. I'm only to where episode 2 starts right now, but I'm starting to read the manga, and I'm actually really impressed with how faithful so far the anime is in terms of design, in terms of look to the manga. It's pretty faithful. I mean, Hawk especially looks the same as he does in the manga, but I'm only like 63 pages in, so I've not gotten very far yet. But I'm figure I might as well just start reading maybe a couple volumes to get in. But yeah, it's good stuff. Good stuff. So yeah, I like Kija compares himself to Yona, being like, how have you managed to, survive out here? And she's like, my father died, I suffered, so anything that we face now is not going to be it's not going to be as terrible as that night. She's like, nothing will be as terrible as the night I lost my father, And then Kija saying, maybe it's the blood inside of me that wants to protect the king. He's like, but I wish to support this frail girl on the verge of tears. I want to support Yona. So I like that. It's getting beyond just fate and the dragon's blood telling him to protect the king. It's actually Kija wanting to do it. Kija wanting to protect her out of his own volition. I like it. I like it a lot. And so, yeah, just the scene where Yona's gonna spoon feed Hawk. Isn't it like a Japanese trope that if you feed someone something, it's like a sign of love and it's a sign of like endearment? I kept thinking that at the moment. I was like, oh, she's going to give him a spoonful. And then Kija comes in like, I'll do this menial task for you. And Hawk's like, you're ruining it. Hawk doesn't want to admit that he wants to get closer to Yona, but he certainly doesn't shy those moments away. He certainly doesn't turn down anything like that. Yeah, and I saw that little moment where Yoon gets complimented by Yona and like the flowers are all around him and he's blushing. It's like, Yoon will take the compliment. So yeah, so the blue dragon. So this is kind of an interesting thing where their tribe, it was established, their village, unlike the white dragon's village that was just secluded and isolated and they kept outsiders away, apparently the blue dragon's village was infiltrated and just went off the map. Like they just became nomads and were like, peace out, we're gonna leave. The opposite of the white dragon's clan. So I like that we're already getting that contrast and the idea that the blue dragon probably moves around. Maybe their people move around. They're not like a stationary group. I feel like the blue and white dragons are going to be more just in their appearance. They seem more like a tribal character. Like definitely the white dragon seems more like the royal tribal character like Yona. And then this dragon, you can tell by his furs and his mask, he still seems like he's connected to the tribe. Whereas the blonde and the green-haired dragons, they look like they're more soloist or loners. They don't seem like they're connected so much to a tribe like the first two are. So maybe that's what we're slowly building at, getting a variety of these different characters and how they've grown up in this world. Interesting. And I like that they touch upon the idea of going to near the borders. Like, what happens if a dragon did leave the kingdom and went to the outside border where they're not safe, where they're very much not safe? We don't know. So I like that they're exploring that idea as well. But yeah, our poor Kija getting used to traveling and sleeping outside. And then of course they've been in the fire tribe territory for a while, but they're so conspicuous. I love that this show makes the fourth wall joke of being like, don't draw attention to yourselves. Wait, like we have a girl with fiery red hair, a silver-haired guy with a friggin' dragon claw, and the thunder beast with a giant glaive. Y'all stick out like sore thumbs. Like, that's not gonna be easy. I love it. Former general, red-haired princess, dragon's claw, silver hair. Totally conspicuous. I love it. But yeah, I like the reference to Modazushi. They had the loquat juice. Good call there. I like it. because in Modazushi, loquats are really well sought out at because they're like the sweet fruit. And then, yeah, I liked the struggle that Gija's wanted to be useful. And him and Yona are very similar in the fact that they both want to be useful. They don't want to just be these powerless characters that are important but can't do anything. So I feel like Kija connects to her a lot in this episode because at first he comments about how Yona's frail and doesn't need to do anything. Just let Hawk and him protect her. But then as the episode goes on, Kija realizes like, well, I don't want Hawk to do everything for me. I don't want Yuna to do everything for me. I need to protect Yona, but I need to prove to her that I'm useful. And he just feels like he's kind of helpless. Like he's just kind of giving a broad area of where the blue dragon is, but he's not doing anything beyond that. So I like by the end of the episode, he confronts himself about it and expresses his frustration and then asks Yona, he's like, am I useful for you? And then when she says he can't be replaced, it's like, there we go. And then of course Yoon finds the place on the map he hadn't sought out yet, and they decide to go there. So the animation when he's frustrated, when he's like on the mountain, like, and his face is like flustered, that animation is so gorgeous. It's probably my favorite panel in the episode, where he's just like, you know, in the darkness by himself. And he's like, if I could detect the dragon's location more clearly, and he like grabs his arm, the princess wouldn't have to exhaust himself. He's like, I'm supposed to be helping her, but I'm not pulling my weight. And that shot of him like just grabbing his arm with his claw and everything, so good. So good. To have to rely on Hawk and Yoon's knowledge and wisdom is so frustrating. Yeah. And then I love that he says, brother of dragon's blood. Like he's calling out to the blue dragon, like, you're my brother. We're together. He's like, don't you want to meet Yona? He's like, I've waited my whole life to meet her, and I instantly felt that connection with her. Don't you want to meet her too? Like, it's almost like he's calling out, like, stop moving, you know? I love it. This episode's so good. I really, really liked it. And then, of course, Hawk stopping him when they're watching her practice the archery. And here's the thing. I like that he just says, you don't stop the princess from wielding a weapon. He's like, isn't that contradicting what you're trying, like, you're trying to protect her, but you're going to let her wield a weapon? How's that work? And we know from episodes back, their conversation about it. But I like Hawk. Hawk is, his like desire and flirting is very interesting because he's like, I don't want her to fight. But then there's that gleam in his eyes. He's like, I'm conflicted. I want to watch her struggle like a human being. Like he wants to bring her down from godhood, right? He almost wants to bring her down to being like a normal person. And that's such a contrast because the dragons all kind of want to put her up on a pedestal and be like, oh, you're this reincarnation of basically a humanized god. And Hawk is like, I want to recognize her as a human, as a normal person. And that gleam in his eye and everything, it's like, okay, all right. I like there's that contrast there. I like it. He's like, I want to see her work for it. It's like, dude. And then, of course, gets the roly-poly out of the way. I love it. And then, yeah, that shot of him. I need to take a picture of it really quick because it's so good. Yeah, the shot of him. He's like, I want to help her and be useful to her. And it's like, but you are. And then, yeah. And what she says, he protects me all the time. I want to protect him. And he's like, that's exactly how I feel. And it's like, yeah, you guys are so similar. I love it. So yeah, fun times. This episode was great. I'm glad we get more on Gija's character. We're getting more with his power. His relationship with Hawk and Yona is developing. Yoon is developing. It's all good. So I'm really curious if we're gonna meet the blue dragon next episode or if we're gonna wait just a little bit longer. We had like an episode before we met the white dragon, so I can feel maybe we're close to meeting the blue dragon, but just not yet. So next episode's the halfway point, y'all. Halfway through the series, next episode. I mean, obviously I'm reading the manga after it, but this anime is so good. I love it so much. So yeah, I'm curious to know your thoughts down below, what you all thought of this episode. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care. And yeah, next week we'll be back with episode 12 of Yona of the Dawn. Bye.